So I've got this 2x5 rectangular tubing, which is an 1/8 inch thick, and today's project is going to be replacing these rocker panels with this stuff. You may know exactly what I'm talking about, but in case you don't, this is where you cut a section of this rocker panel out from end to end on a Jeep Cherokee, and you basically just weld the rectangular tubing to where that was. Then when you go smash it up against rocks, it will take the hit more than this thin sheet metal will. And in addition to that, it's going to give me a nice place to weld this exofab cage onto. Here's a couple of things to consider. First of all, if you're going to use a laser level like this one, then you're going to want to get the bottom of the door or bottom of the rocker panel level also. So my shop has a little bit of a grade to it so that if water gets in here, it can just flow out the front door. So to compensate for that, I've used my new jack to lift the front up a little bit so the truck will be level. Now when I turn on my laser level, I'll be able to line it up perfect. I'm going to draw over that with a Sharpie, just like I did when I bobbed the bed. That way when I go to cut this thing, I can look at the Sharpie underneath the blade instead of blocking the light beams coming from the laser. Now with every time that I cut into this Jeep, it is a little nerve-wracking, but because I'm going to smash this thing on the rocks, I think that having this 2x5 rocker in here will look a lot better after my wheeling sessions than if I just left this rocker panel. Okay, so now I have drawn a line all the way from one end to the other. The fender portion and part of the bed, aside from the front corner, is going to be folded after it's cut. So the next thing that I have to figure out is how far in on the corners of the cab that I need to cut in. And that's going to depend on how far I want these rock sliders to actually stick out. It doesn't have to stick out too much, but I would like it to stick out as much as this fold in the sheet metal goes. So I think I'm going to use the same trick I did to locate my front axle with a plumb bob. I'll know exactly how far to cut because I'll measure from the edge of this string to the inside of this side. And then once I know that measurement, I can measure from the inside cut edge to the original cut, and I'll be able to know how deep to cut on this front corner. Okay, I'll get my face shield on and my ears in, and we'll start cutting. Okay, so now I've got this cut all the way across, as straight as I can. Cut the bed for a bend later. I've got to bend the fender later. Now the next cut you're supposed to do is right along or right behind this seam weld, this pinch weld on the bottom of your rocker panel. But I think I'm going to cut it a little in front of that since I am only using a 2x5 instead of a 2x6. I want to leave myself a little bit of room in case I do want to put this out a little further. So I'll go ahead and cut that, and we'll come right back. So on the back, I'm about 2 inches. And 2 inches doesn't look terrible. So I may stick with that, but it's sticking out more in the front than it is in the back. So what I'm going to do, measure it here. That's 2 inches exactly. Measure it as far as the end as I can. That's about 5/8. So I need to cut about 5/8 off the inside right here and see if I can slide the front end a little more. Snug fit. What do we think of that? Huh? If it sticks out about like this, not only are you going to be protected by rocks from underneath, but to a certain extent, it's gonna protect your side here from some rocks too. Guess what I need to do next? I cut this a little bit long so that I could bevel them to match the fenders. I need to fold the fenders, and I need to fold the bed. Okay, these are seaming pliers, and they're typically used in the HVAC business when putting together ducts, so they can slide the air ducts together and pinch the seams, and that's what seals up all your air ducts in your ceiling. I like to use it for bending metal because you can, but before I can do that, I've got to cut this off right here so that the metal actually fits in these seaming pliers. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Now that we have enough room to grab this, all you do is line up the line and kind of bend it, and then we'll fold it all the way over, just like you would do the back quarter panel of a Jeep XJ. With this, I'm actually going to go a little bit above the line because I want to leave enough room between the bottom of this fender and this rock slider so that it's not rubbing and vibrating on there. So let's start. Bend it just a little bit. Grab it in your next spot. Bend that a little bit. Now that we've got a defined edge on here, fold this up the rest of the way. If you're doing this to a vehicle that you don't want to repaint, you can heat this paint up, and that might help it from chipping like this. And then also, you can put a rag or something between these pliers, and it'll help also not chip your paint up. When we finish, I'm going to repaint everything. This is a lot nicer than having a cut edge, and that'll sit right on top of this rock slider, just like that. Nice little gap, and it'll hide the tube behind it and the weld, and that'll be just great. Now we just got to do the same thing to the bed. There it is. Not as difficult as you think. See, you can almost tell there's no gap there, but there is. It's about an 1/8 inch right there. This whole thing is nice and movable, so I'll still be able to take the bed off so I can work on other stuff before I finish this. Sticking out just about 2 inches all the way through the door. Sticks out past my widest point in my cab. This thing is turning out pretty good. So I made this little piece right here to block off the end of this and to hold it on just perfect. I've got a magnet which will hold the piece. It'll stick to the piece and to the tube if I set it up right. And then I can go ahead and position that where I want to and use both hands to do a really good weld all the way around there. That looks good! Let's work on the other side. So I have this piece of 3/8 stock. I'm going to cut a little square out of it, weld it to the back side of this slider, and then I'm going to drill and tap that and put this air chuck in there. Then hopefully, with any luck, I'll be able to use this rock slider as a secondary air tank. Definitely want to drill and tap those holes before I weld this thing up so that I don't have a bunch of metal going in there. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. I want to show you something. This is a tapered tap for a tapered fitting. And the way that you go about doing that is you want to tap it until there's threads and then test fit it. Because if you tap this too much, then you won't be able to get the fitting in as tight as you need it to be. I'm going to do a little bit here, come back out. I test fit it, and we'll do it until we can. Okay, it's going down to about a third of the way, so I think that I wanted to get about halfway down like this one is, because then I can put some thread tape on here, snug it up really good. A couple more rotations of this one, and that one goes about halfway in. Now, I'm going to cover these holes using a couple of these fittings, and we'll go ahead and weld the rest of this up. Hopefully those welds will hold air. Same deal with this one, except for I want to get it as close to the edge as possible. That way we're going to get as much water out of this as I can. And then if I find that there is a problem with water, with a lot of water being left in here, then I could always get my AC tools and vacuum this thing out. This isn't the fitting I'll be putting on there. I'm going to put an elbow facing toward the truck so that this thing doesn't get knocked off by all the little rocks and stuff that get pushed up there. Oh yeah. Time to make another plate. We could use a square, draw the line all the way across. We could throw us a square, draw this line all the way across. That's our plate. One thing I'd like to show off is, you can see in here, I've got my two air chucks, and one is going to be connected to the main air compressor and tank, and the other one will go to filling tires. And then I'll run my locking differential off of the main air tank. If this ever leaks because it gets punctured somehow or rusts through because of water, I couldn't get all the water out, then I can always just unhook this tank and just use the little one. This is the front side. It protrudes enough to where it's not hitting my tire, but also I'm going to be able to weld the Exofab cage to the inside. I kind of like the way this turned out. I think it looks good. Technically, this is part of the cage and the frame. Stay tuned for next Monday. I'm going to support the bottom of this rectangular tube to the frame. Who welded this?